Hello. I'm Doctor Who. And these are my plucky assistants. Thing one and the other one.
Il Nado.
We picked up your distress call. And here we are to help, like awesome heroes.
Yeah, we're not assistants.
Okay, right, what does he call you? Companions? Pets? Snacks? Oh. Someone's watching. Well, it's quite a good beat, really, isn't it?
Yeah, maybe we should be moving on.
Yeah, and he calls us friends.
Oh, Doctor. But think of the age gap.
Stop mucking about and concentrate. Now, Dole, do something non-irritating.
On it, sir.
Time Lords are friends with each other, dear. Everything else is cradle snatching.
Oh, it's a big one. Ship reads as 400 miles long and 100 miles wide.
It's big, even for a colony ship. Anything else?
Look at that.
Finally. So watching plants grow.
It's heading towards a black hole.
No, it isn't.
It was heading towards a black hole until somebody noticed. Now they're trying to reverse away from it. Engines are on reverse thrust, see?
Well, it's succeeding.
Very, very slowly.
Explains the distress call, I guess.
So, a 400-mile ship reversing away from the gravitational pull of a black hole.
We haven't fun yet.
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always, I am joined with...
Hello, it's Scott.
Hello, Scott, and we are now continuing on with looking through Doctor Who chronologically, with every Doctor that is. We finished off Matt Smith era last month, and now as we enter into October, we are taking a look at one of my personal favourite Doctors with Peter Capaldi, and the incredibly good Series 10 finale, World Enough and Time and The Doctor Falls. We're looking at World Enough and Time this week and The Doctor Falls next week, and this is just a fucking awesome time, and I can't believe that we're on Peter Capaldi already. We're going to be looking at Jodie again really soon.
Oh,
My God. Feels like ages since I watched a Jodie episode. But we talk about Chibnall all the time, so it also doesn't feel like it was that long ago. But this episode... World Enough and Time first aired on the 24th of June 2017, which was a Saturday and extremely upsetting 6 years and 3 months ago. Could you, the US president at the time was, of course, Mr. Donald John Trump, famous for being a insurrectionist and a hater of democracy. But could you, Scott, guess as to who the UK Prime Minister was at this time? I asked this question because this is around the time where we're getting a new Prime Minister every week, it feels like. So do you remember which one of them was Prime Minister in 2017 in June?
It must have been Theresa May, right?
It was Theresa May, who looking back at it, I wish, I miss the Prime Minister being a wet blanket of an awkward, awful person, rather than what we ended up getting with like Boris Johnson and then the incompetency of Liz Truss. And now we have Rishi Sunak, who's just like, I hate green energy. That's his new platform. His new platform is, I don't want renewable energy anymore. Let's get rid of that. Which is an interesting stance to take as we keep breaking records of heat, every goddamn summer. But, they're probably going to lose the next election. I fucking hope.
Yeah, and there's also speculation there another general election. I'm sick and tired of it. It's such a nightmare.
General election is due to happen next year. Like, it'll have been 5 years. Can you believe that? 5 years since Boris Johnson won. It fucking feels like 25. So we are due an election next year at some point. Whether or not that happens sooner, who knows? The Prime Minister can literally call an election at any time, and he should, because he will lose, and that's a good idea. He's going to win. Rishi Sunak, call an election right now. It'll go great. Could you guess as to what is the number one film in the box office in the United States mainly. But what's number one? Making all that money in the cinemas.
Okay, I know we're a month away from Spider-Man: Homecoming. What came out a month before that? Can you give me a hint? 2017.
It is a sequel.
Oh, it's not a very helpful hint. Sequels come out every fucking week.
It's animated.
Animated movie in 2017.
Yeah, came out at the end of June. A lot of people were excited by the trailer, even though the series is famously not that great.
Oh, is it Cars 3?
It is Cars 3.
Okay.
Cars 3 is number one at the box office at the minute. It's only number one for a week before getting taken over by Transformers The Last Night. And it beat out Wonder Woman, which was number one. And that's a movie I don't understand why people like. Wonder Woman is not a good movie.
Wonder Woman is kind of good up until the third act, where it's just a CGI mess. I like the first two acts enough, whereas like the first two acts are like a 7 out of 10, I think. I mean, it kind of just goes downhill towards the end, whereas the God of War, I don't even know what the fuck happened.
Yeah, it was bad, and it was really bad CGI as well, which didn't help. But that's what DC did at the time. Maybe things will get better.
We'll see.
I really hope.
Cars 3 is a movie I've not seen yet. I hear it's one thing that comedian Griffin Newman says is Cars 2. No, wait. I've lost the joke.
That was a good joke. This is really funny. There's a really good setup and a really good payoff to that joke. I really enjoyed it.
Cars.
I've not seen...
Cars. I'll get this. Cars.
Okay.
2.
We'll just wait.
Cars. Give me a
You'll
second.
get there. It's okay. We'll just sit. It's not like we're making a show or anything. We'll just sit and wait.
Cars.
Remember this joke.
Cars 2 makes Cars 3 look like Cars 1.
Cars 2 makes Cars 3 look like Cars 1.
Because
Cars 2 is so bad it makes
Yes.
Cars 3 look even better. Yeah, okay. So like Cars... I haven't seen Cars 3 either. I remember the trailer being like, damn, Lightning McQueen in a big crash. That looks cool. And then I never bothered to think about the movie again. I might watch it at some point, but probably not anytime soon. It's not really on my to-do list. But yeah, it's certainly a movie of all time. Anyway, that's all I've got for the On This Day segment. It's very nice and brief because this was very recent in history. Scott, why don't you take us into, you said, a director's corner this week. Oh my.
Oh my, yes, George Takei.
Oh my. Oh my.
Oh my. This episode was written by Stephen Moffat and it's directed by Rachel Talalay, who we haven't actually covered an episode from yet. Rachel Talalay, of course, directed all of the series finals for Peter Capaldi, some of the best looking episodes of Doctor Who, I would say. She was born in Chicago in 1958. Her father was a pharmacologist and her mother was a biochemist, and she graduated from Yale University in 1980 with a major in mathematics, where she also ran the Yale Film Society. So she's obviously interested in film around this time. She works as a computer programmer at Johns Hopkins. She was considering going to film school because she wanted to break into the film industry, but had no idea how to do that until one day she saw a casting call for a John Waters movie called Polyester in 1981. Are you familiar with John Waters?
The name sounds familiar, but I don't know if I know any of the work.
If you look up the man, you'll recognize him straight away. Like, he has one of those faces. One of the most iconic faces.
Yeah, I know his face. Yep.
You would know him from The Simpsons mainly, but he directed movies like Cry Baby and what's a really Pink Flamingo, which he created as one of the most disturbing movies of all time. Like, there's a scene in Pink Flamingo where the drag queen Divine has a birthday party, and one of the guests or one of the performers at the birthday party prolapses his anus and starts jiggling it around to the song Surfing Bird. Like, he just wants that movie to be as disgusting as possible.
Great. Great.
Who watches Pink Flamingo when?
It's I don't know if that is something I want to watch immediately. You've done a great job selling it.
So she wrote from a note asking if she could become a production assistant, and the producer says if you can work for free and you have a car, you're hired, basically. And she soon wound up meeting a load of people in the film industry. Soon as she wound up working on the first 4 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. On the Elm Street movies, she worked her way up from being a assistant to a production manager to a producer. So these are the first 4 Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and her main responsibilities on the first 2 movies was to find the locations, while on the third one she claims that it was her special effects education, where she was tasked with making the effects look as good as possible, while also keeping costs low. And this sounds like she's perfect for Doctor Who, basically.
Yeah, Doctor Who training, really.
The special effects on her episodes of Doctor Who looks like some of the best ones because she knows how to make them look as good as possible on such a shoestring budget. Like, Jesus Christ, some of the effects in this episode is crazy.
Yeah, no, this is a good looking episode. It's even the hole that gets put through Bill, like it's really easy for that effect to look cheap and weird. But it looks almost flawless. Like it doesn't feel jarring at all. It doesn't feel out of place. It feels that's a person with a hole in their chest. You know.
Yeah, and any other director would have probably shot around it, maybe just shoot it from one angle and then not bother with like the pan up of her body. But you know, we get different perspectives on that hole, which is incredible.
That's a fun sentence out of context.
She wound up developing a close working relationship with John Waters when New Line Cinema expressed interest in her being a producer on the original Hairspray movie, which John Waters was thrilled about when she told him. She would then produce Crybaby with him, and eventually John Waters would officiate her wedding, which is really cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, that's cool.
Like if people aren't aware of John Waters, they'd probably recognize him from the Simpsons episode he guest starred in called Homer's Phobia, where Homer Simpson basically befriends John Waters, and he doesn't realize he's gay. like
that's
one
a
of the
classic episode. Yeah,
one of the best episodes, and John Waters is basically.
Episode.
John Waters is basically playing a fictionalized version of himself here, because all the characteristics of John in that episode is just him. He's a really fun dude.
Yeah, that's a good episode, memorable.
So Rachel finally made her directorial debut in 1991 when she directed Freddy's Dead: The Final Nightmare. And this is where she first experienced the sexism in the industry, sadly, where she was given memos to not be too girly or to be too sensitive in the film, which is a wild thing to tell her when she's worked on most of the movies up to this point. She knows the tone of these movies, but the men in charge think a
She's
woman...
going to make it all pink and glittery.
Yeah, which is... really sad. She would only sadly direct 2 more films after this, with Ghost in the Machine in 1993 and Tank Girl in 1995, which was based on a comic strip co-created by one of the co-creators of the band Gorillaz, which is really cool. Have you seen or heard about Tank Girl? Because it's kind of infamous.
I have heard of Tank Girl. I've also heard of Ghost in the Machine. I've never seen Tank Girl or Ghost in the Machine. But Tank Girl was on Netflix for ages, and they kept recommending it to me with the big poster of the yellow background with the blue face. But I've never actually watched it. Is it worth a watch?
I haven't seen it. It's become a bit of a cult classic over the years, so I'm thinking of watching it eventually. It's on MGM at the moment, which is like an add-on
Who
to...
has that? Who has that? Who has MGM? Who subscribes to MGM Plus? Who are you? Do you have stock in MGM? Is that why you subscribe to MGM Plus? Like, who's that for?
I don't understand why MGM is still a separate app when MGM is owned by Amazon. Why not move the catalog to Amazon Prime, bulk up the catalog, especially when Amazon Prime is going to become dearer next year.
Yeah, they're about to raise the prices. Like, awesome. I clicked on Tank Girl for the Amazon Prime link, and for some reason Amazon Prime has this movie which you can watch with an MGM 7-day free trial, but the entire description is written in German. And I don't know why.
Yeah, Amazon Prime is a really weird broken service sometimes. Like it has the weirdest shit on it.
The worst streaming service, but it's got some hidden gems in it, you know?
You know, because Amazon Prime has shit like, Roblox videos. You know, watch Roblox playthroughs? It has
got
it.
The boys right next to it, you know? Same quality.
Such a weird service. But yeah, Tank Girl has become a bit of a cult classic, and one of the things on Tank Girl that Rachel's actually kind of proud of, she jokingly says she created the Spice Girls because 2 of the Spice Girls auditioned for the main role on that movie. So they must have met behind the scenes when they were just in the casting call room, and I could just imagine. Spice Girls a decent band. You'd think it's a shit band, but
I don't think I've ever actively gone out my way to listen to any of their music. I must have heard a song or two from like the radio as a kid, but I have never sat down and be like, let's listen to some Spice Girls right now. So I couldn't tell you.
I have a few Spice Girl songs on my Spotify playlist, and I
I
never skip them. We're such a bop, such a great band. But sadly, Tank Girl became a bomb, and she found that all the doors suddenly started closing on her in the industry, so she wound up directing TV in America as well as UK. And this is one of those things where if she was probably a man, there's like a 60% chance she would have been able to get a new film. But because she's a woman and she had not so great hits, she had...
Yeah, I mean, all 3 of her movies didn't get great reviews.
Yeah,
or make great amounts of money.
Which is a shame, because she's a really good director, you know? And if she was a man...
She is.
If she was a man, she would have gotten more chances, I think, which is a big shame.
And maybe a better script, like better projects to work on. But yeah, no, she at least, you know, she did end up having a very good career, because this episode of Doctor Who is fantastic.
Oh my god, it's brilliant. She directed episodes of Band of Gold, Ally McBeal, Randall and Hopkirk Deceased, which she would have worked with Tom Baker on that one, actually. She worked on The Dead Zone, Supernatural, and pretty much episodes of all the DC CW shows. So, and also Riverdale. So she was part of the CW factory.
Interesting. Wow, she was. Yeah, but you know, she didn't write the scripts, so that's not her fault. She didn't write. She didn't write an episode of Riverdale. At least as far, maybe she did. Maybe she did. Like.
It's been a while since I've seen her episodes of these CW shows. I presume they must be some of the best looking episodes of those shows. I would presume so.
You never know. Who knows?
And she also directed an episode of Sherlock in 2017. She also directed the TV movie Wind in the Willows in 2006, which co-starred Bob Hoskins, Matt Lucas, and Mark Gatiss. So she's part of the Doctor Who family for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, she has had a busy career since like 1995, just working on every television show imaginable, basically. But sadly, she still faced a lot of sexism. At times, she was told that cast and crews on some shows wouldn't want a woman to work with, which is insane. Which is really sad. just the industry is just. Really depressing.
It's a cool place. Yeah, it's a really cool place.
When Doctor Who came back in 2005, she became a fan and really wanted to work on it. She eventually got into the show in 2014 and directed the episodes I basically said. She's also going to direct The Star Beast, which is the first 60th anniversary episode, which I am so hyped about.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. Plus with the extra budget, we've already seen in the trailers, like,
Yeah.
this show looks incredible. It looks ace now, so.
And if you want to hear our thoughts
wait.
on the 60th anniversary trailers, we released a review of the trailer last week, which was fun to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure it was a very thought-provoking discussion.
Yeah.
We really dove into the intricacies of filmmaking itself and broke it down into a very understandable level. And I think it got about 2 million views. I think that's exactly it. It's sitting at about 2 million right now. Yeah.
So that's the career of Rachel Talalay, and one of the things she really wants to do in the future is to do like a big budget, like a Star Wars movie with special effects and explosives. And I think she needs to do a Star Wars. Did I say Star Trek?
You said Star Wars, and then the second time you went Star Wars.
I was confused for some reason.
Very similar.
I would love to see a Rachel Talalay Star Wars movie or episode. It'd be really cool.
I feel like at this point in her career, it's probably more likely she'd get an episode of a Star Wars show than a Star Wars movie. But yeah, I'd be down to watch a Star Wars show episode directed by her. Be cool. Star Wars shows are pretty decent right now.
So some of the alternate titles for this episode was Matt Lucas at one point, who was scared of a Cyberman as a kid, suggested the title.
That's a weird title.
He suggested the title "Keeping Up with the Mondasians," which I kind of dig. If
it's
Doctor,
funny, it kind of ruins the Mondasian twist.
but
funny.
If Doctor Who Confidential was around this time, they would probably have a title like that, "Keeping Up with the Mondasians." World Enough in Time also had the placeholder title of X at one point, which only makes me think of Twitter now, but Planet X is obviously where the Cybermen originate, so that's where we're going for. But I'm glad we didn't choose X, because all I could think of is Elon Musk, so...
Yeah. Although also, I think World Enough in Time is not a good title. Like, I don't like that as a title of this episode. I don't know what I would call this episode, but World Enough in Time is too chunky. It's too many words. It's a very wordy title. It's not a memorable episode name. Whereas, like, The Doctor Falls, the next episode, that's an easy title. It's memorable. It's snappy. World Enough in Time is too many syllables. Too many syllables.
Yeah, but this title was inspired by a line from the poem called "To His Coy Mistress," which was written in the 17th century by Andrew Marvell. I have no idea who he is or what the poem is about, but... I agree with you.
Andrew Marvel's the guy that came up with Marvel Comics.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he invented Spider-Man.
That's why Marvel. Yeah, Marvel is in his name, so that's the only way that would make sense.
But yeah, I'm not a fan of the title either. But there's worse titles.
Yeah.
Especially in the Chibnall era.
No, there's not. This is the worst title ever. The Battle of Branskor Avkolos is the greatest title. World Enough in Time, too many syllables. Battle of Branskor Avkolos flows off the tongue. It just dribbles down. It's like a lovely drizzle of rain against a window. It's a beautiful, relaxing title. World Enough in Time. Oh my God! It's like someone has stabbed my ears. Like that's how I feel about the situation.
So this story was written in January of 2017, filmed between February and April, and it aired in June. This only left them with 6 weeks of post-production, which is insane. 6 weeks post-production.
Talk about crunch. Jesus Christ.
And this episode looks spectacular because you really need someone like Rachel Talalay to really get... Because most of this is just, on the day filming. It's not special effects, really. Like, there's a few special effects here and there, but it's mostly just atmosphere created by Rachel Talalay and the talented crew who work on this show, which, 6 weeks. That's insane. It's one good thing that they're now doing them like a year and a half in advance. Give them a proper year to get the special effects done, because otherwise,
as long as they don't get lazy with it.
Yeah.
They're like, we've got a year, let's just put it to the back burner. Oh shit, it's out next week.
But yeah, that's the pre-production stuff for the
Battle of Ranskorovkolos. No, World Enough and Time.
World Enough in Time. Do you want to jump into the episode? I forgot the title. It's great.
Yeah, let's jump into this episode finally, shall we? Woohoo!
I love disguises. Do you still like disguises? Of course, they are rather necessary when you happen to be someone's former prime minister.
The episode begins with a cold open in the a cold open, because it's in the snow. It's a cold open.
Well done. Well done.
As the TARDIS appears and the Doctor falls out, and he's got big long poofy hair, which is how you know it's a good Capaldi episode. The longer Capaldi's hair becomes, the greater the writing is how you judge a pure Capaldi's era. But he falls to the ground and he starts to glow a regenerative glow, and screams out "No!" As the regeneration takes over the rest of his body. And then we cut to the intro credits, and like when I was watching this, because I had only seen this episode when it aired, and then watching it earlier today was my first time seeing it for a second time. I was like, "Oh, that's a fun intro. That's kind of cool." Then I forgot that it happened because it doesn't relate to anything else in this episode. Like that, this doesn't get paid off until you were saying the Christmas special. When Capaldi actually regenerates. Yeah. So like seeing this as the cold open now, I'm like, oh, this is exciting. The Doctor's going to regenerate, and then he doesn't do anything with that for the next 2 episodes, and I forgot that this was the cold open. Mm-hmm. Like almost immediately into this episode.
Yeah, this is obviously filmed for the Christmas episode. It was filmed on the 12th of June, just a few weeks before the air date, and it's obviously part of the Christmas episode filming, and it's just randomly shoehorned in here. I guess it's just to remind viewers his regeneration is coming up, because the story as a whole doesn't feel like it's going to lead to a regeneration story. Like the fact that, like with what causes the regeneration is kind of glossed over, to be honest with you. It's just very interesting way to do a regeneration episode. I'm not the biggest fan of this cold open, because I'd rather just jump right into the episode, and what happens to Bill should have been the cold open, the end of the cold open, and then go into the credits, because
I mean the cold open of like the Doctor coming out giving a heroic speech and then that not working, that's a way more interesting cold open for sure. Yeah,
because if you're if you're watching the program before this, just to whatever it is, the news or whatever, and you're thinking about watching Catchphrase on ITV at 7:00, and you're just sticking around for the first.
Who's thinking of that? Who's thinking about watching Catchphrase?
Some boring old grandma, I presume. But if you watch the opening of this and you stick around till the intro, you're like an old man glowing in the snow. Okay.
But I mean, like if you're in the UK, you're aware of Doctor Who, and you know what it looks like when the Doctor regenerates, or at least there's a high statistical chance that you do. So like I feel like the Doctor regenerating, like most people are like, oh damn, is the Doctor going to regenerate in this episode? Because again, like a casual audience isn't following Doctor Who news. They aren't listening to the leaks and the rumors. They don't really know when it's going to happen. And then if they see it happening, it's like, oh damn, is this the one? Like I get why they would put it in here, but it doesn't feel like it belongs in this episode at all.
Yeah,
I agree with that. Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it was always Stephen Moffat's plan to have this as the cold open, to the point where when it was screened for press audiences at probably the beginning of June, they obviously hadn't shot this opening yet, so the opening was just blank. It was just straight to the intro credits. But I just prefer the opening being the whole.
Yeah, no, I agree. After that, we then get the intro credits and cut to some very funky-looking establishing shots of a big, long, sausage-shaped spaceship outside of a black hole. And it's a pretty cool-looking shot. We get some nice pans and whips around this thing to get a sense of its scale, and that this is really this is where we're spending the entirety of this episode for the most part, minus some flashbacks. So, get used to being inside the spaceship. And then we cut to the TARDIS appearing inside like a control center of the ship, and outside of coming out of the TARDIS is Doctor Who herself, Missy, who is Michelle Gomez is incredible in this episode. I mean, she's incredible in every episode, but I forgot how much I loved Missy. It's such an amazing interpretation of the character.
Going back to that opening sequence, it's like a minute-long CGI sequence at the very start of the episode, and it really holds up because you're looking inside of the windows of the spaceship and you're seeing what appears to be the outside with, grass and the sky and buildings. And it's really good foreshadowing of what the setting is going to be next week. And it's really intriguing as well. And obviously, like a minute-long sequence, the fact they had 6 weeks to work on this, it looks incredible. It looks so good, It blew me away just watching it the other day. It looks so good, and the music as well from Murray Gold. I was very critical of Murray Gold's later work because he starts to reuse tracks, and maybe this is a reused track, but the music in this episode is really spectacular. I really love most of the musical choices. And
I enjoyed it as well.
And just this era of this season of Doctor Who, the fact that the Doctor and the Master are kind of friends now is really cool.
I loved it. I was giddy with excitement when it happened. Absolutely loved it. I was 17 when this episode aired, and it was just like, oh my god, I love everything about this.
Oh god, I was 19. I was almost about to say when I was a kid, but when I was a kid watching this episode at 19.
Yeah,
but I really
we knew
love
each other. We might have been aware of, or at least we were vaguely aware of each other at this point, because this would have been first year of HND. So we would know each other better the next year. But this is we're getting close to meeting each other when this is airing.
Well, great time. I wish we could have been talking about this every week.
Instead we talked about Jodie every week, and we're like, God, it's so bad, isn't it?
Instead of starting out with Flux, what a nightmare. But I really love Missy's connection with the Doctor this season, and Michelle Gomez is so brilliant in the role. I think she's my second favorite Master of all time.
She might be my favorite of all time.
Because my favorite is still the original Roger Delgado. He's always going to be my favorite. But Michelle Gomez, I wasn't too sure of her at first, in Series 8. But she really found her footing eventually. She's really good in this episode. And I might meet her next year at Comic Con. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. Yeah, I think she might be one of my favorite, if not my favorite Masters. I really like Roger Delgado. He's like a very fun mustache, twirling, I am the villain sort of guy. And I really enjoy John Sims' interpretation of the Master as well. I wonder if we'll ever see him again in Doctor Who. Who knows?
I don't think we'll be covering a John Sim episode for a while, I'm afraid.
I don't think we'll ever see him again in Doctor Who. But it's but I really loved. There's something about Michelle Gomez's interpretation of Missy. I just whenever she's on screen, I don't want you to leave. I would watch an entire episode that is just you and Peter Capaldi talking. Please do that. Just talk and maybe kiss. I love them. They are amazing chemistry together, and they play off the dynamic between the Doctor and the Master so well, and it's one of the most interesting relationships. And it's also why I think people were so lukewarm about Sacha Dhawan as the Master. Because Sacha Dhawan is really good as the Master. He gives a really good hammy sort of over-the-top performance as this maniacal villain, but it feels like it's lacking that relationship with the Doctor that got established in the Missy era, because the Missy Doctor relationship became so interesting and so compelling that when you suddenly see the Master again and he's just like, oh, I hate you, Doctor, I'm going to shoot you in the face while I monologue at you for the next 15 minutes. Like that's suddenly like that's not what you want to see. You want to see like, oh, I loved you, Doctor, like what happened, like where's this conflict, rather than just big maniacal villain again. And I think Missy is so good, she ruined the next version of the Master.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah, that's the problem with the Sacha Dhawan version is he doesn't really get much time to connect with Jodie because, his big monologue speeches usually just have Jodie standing there just listening, saying, "Oh no, that's not true,"
Yeah, like barely acting, like, no.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Like.
Yeah, what I love, it goes back to the Delgado days of John Pertwee and Roger Delgado when we covered the Sea Devils. There's the scene inside of a prison where maybe the Master has turned to good now, and maybe the Doctor is beginning to trust the Master, and he's about to shake his hand, and he's about to trust the Master for the first time in years. And that was a really lovely scene, and I really love the fact that the Doctor really wants the Master to turn to good. He wants some sort of redemption for the Master.
More than anything.
Yeah. And he gets close in this episode. He gets close in Series 10.
It's so heartbreaking. And it's, the Missy comes out and she's got like an earpiece in, and we see Bill and Ardol come out as well with the similar earpieces. Missy introduces herself as Doctor Who, as the Doctor is basically testing her out to see if she could be a good person and do what he does. And so she's pretending to be him. And it leads to some very fun banter between her and Bill and Ardol, where she's trying to convince them that the Doctor's real name is Doctor Who. And it's also like, I feel like, Moffat doing some lovely meta commentary between like the old school Doctor Who fans and the new Doctor Who fans, because I have talked to old people that grew up watching Doctor Who that call the Doctor Doctor Who, and he used to be credited in the show as Doctor Who rather than the Doctor. Like even up to like David Tennant's era, like is Capaldi called Doctor Who at times?
The last Doctor to be credited as Doctor Who was Christopher Eccleston, and then David Tennant, being a massive fan, David Tennant was like, no, his name is the Doctor, there's no Doctor Who.
Which has, led to this like generational debate, and I really enjoy that Moffat was like, I'm going to write that in. And I also really enjoy...
Oh, sorry, carry on.
What do I know? What do I know? No, what do I know?
When I was an edgy teenager, I was like, the name's the Doctor. It's not Doctor Who, and you're an idiot if you call him Doctor Who ever. And I was like 13, 14, etc. I spoke about this before, I was condescending, But when this episode aired, I was 19, and I was really out of that phase by then. Doctor Who is a silly show, I enjoy it, and Missy coming out and saying, my name is Doctor Who, just cracked me up. And also... I think around this time I started calling the character Doctor Who, and whenever people started saying, no, his name is the Doctor, I was like, but Sidney Newman, the creator, calls him Doctor Who. Peter Capaldi calls him Doctor Who. He was credited as Doctor Who for 18 seasons. I mean, I became condescending in that way instead.
You flipped. Whereas I used to also be on the boat of like, no, he's called the Doctor. Why would you call him Doctor Who, you big silly idiot? But now, like, I'm more at a point where I literally don't give a shit.
I deliberately use Doctor Who nowadays just so somebody could have a bone to pick with me sometimes.
Upset someone,
Because there's the quote from The Big Bang Theory that used to go around as a meme sometimes, where Sheldon Cooper is talking to somebody, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've gone through losses before. I cry every time Doctor Who dies." And back in the day, I used to be like, "Oh, Sheldon's not a real fan because his name is the Doctor." Now I just, as you said, I just don't give a shit. Who cares? His name could be Doctor Who. Like he was credited as Doctor Who for like 500 episodes at least.
Yeah. But as this is going on, the Doctor is watching them explore the outside or like this like cockpit area. Like they're in this room basically. They're watching them explore this room from the safety of the TARDIS as he eats a lovely bag of what looks like Monster Munch.
Yeah.
He's just munching on some crisps, which is just hilarious to see. And he's like waiting for them to spot stuff that he's already spotted, and he knows what's going on. He's not even watching the screen most of the time. He's sitting just listening and eating crisps. I love how confident and cocky Capaldi is as the Doctor. I love him as the Doctor so much.
And yeah, in this episode, he the fact that he is cocky and confident leads you into a false sense of hope, only for what happens to be even more heartbreaking, because this is a fun opening. It's really fun. It's so fun.
Yeah, it's really funny. Yeah.
Yeah, Michelle Gomez reading this opening during the table read. She regretted not reading it before she came onto the studio that day, because she just had too much fun reading her lines, and she started choking on crisps herself.
But alarm starts going off on the ship, and they get a call from a guy through a black and white webcam, being like, "Hey, are you guys? What's going on? I'm coming up to see you." And Missy's like, "Oh, you're pretty handsome," and she tries flirting with him in an awkward way, and it's very funny. And she then tells, "I don't think those are Monster Munch. I think they're just ready salted crisps, but they're like an off. Like I recognize that logo. Like they're not Walkers. They're like an off-brand ready salted crisp. But I'm looking at this shot of Capaldi eating them right now.
I'm gonna need to zoom in and enhance if I can only find the correct spot on BBC iPlayer.
I'm at 523, and that's a pretty good shot of the crisps. He's got the logo. He's got the logo facing away from it because it's not sponsored. But it doesn't look like Monster Munch to me. It looks like ready salted.
I'm gonna need a shot where he takes out one of the crisps.
523. He's holding one in his hand.
523. Oh God!
But the logo on the crisp doesn't look like the Monster Munch logo. That's what's making me suspect.
Oh right, yeah. Okay, that looks like a normal crisp. Okay, yeah. You're right. Yeah. Yeah. I kind of want him to be eating Monster Munch,
Monster Munch is funnier. Yeah, Monster Munch is funnier.
Because it's so UK specific,
Yeah.
or if he was eating like a curly whirly.
I haven't seen a curly whirly in ages.
Oh God!
Like when was the last time you saw a curly whirly in the shops?
The last time
I saw like a bag of mini curly whirlies, but like a big curly whirly.
Yeah, I cannot remember the last time I had a curly whirly or seen a curly whirly. There's a curly whirly reference in episode 1 of Sex Education, like the bully character who I think winds up dating Ncuti Gatwa's character, threatens him with a curly whirly at one point or something.
Wow, spoilers for like season 3 of Sex Education.
No, it's going to take a while then. Okay.
Yeah. I think it does take some time. I don't remember how quick it happens. Maybe it happens quicker. It's been a while since I watched those early seasons. Enjoying season 4 though. Curly whirlies are I think underrated. I really enjoyed them as a kid, but I haven't it's a lot of caramel. I haven't had it since an adult. Maybe it's not good. But anyway, Bill, Nardole, and Missy go into a very long conversation about what the Doctor's real name is, and it is very funny. And she almost convinces Bill. Like Bill is like, "Is that your real name, Doctor?" Which I love. Like she put enough doubt into Bill's mind that she's like, "Wait, hang on, his name could be Doctor Who."
Yeah, the thing is that Missy says he chose the name Doctor Who way back when, and he eventually dropped the Who because it was too obvious. And I think this is Stephen Moffat maybe trying to canonize those early TV comics where William Hartnell as Doctor Who in the comics is traveling around with his grandchildren's Gillian and John, I think their names are.
I love those guys. Gillian and John. Love them.
And then they go on loads of adventures like meeting Santa Claus, and those comics are really
Capaldi
weird.
Did that.
Yeah, he met Nick Frost as Santa Claus, which is a really appropriate person to cast as Santa Claus.
It was good casting. Yeah, I'm about to sneeze. No, I'm not. Am I?
Bless you.
Who knows? Oh, yeah. Here we go.
Bless you.
Oh, what a payoff. Then the man from the webcam appears, and he is blue. And that Nardole makes a reference to being like, oh, I should go back to being blue, because it's always fun to remember that Nardole's actually like a robot man. What is Nardole?
I don't remember. It's been a long time. And speaking of Nardole, how great is he as a character? Because when he first appeared in The Husbands of River Song, you know, I found him to be kind of annoying in that episode.
I wasn't expecting him to become a companion.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, oh, this is a fun Matt Lucas cameo. Like, he's a whatever character. I'll never think of him again. And then it's like, no, Nardole is a full-time companion in the TARDIS. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool.
And, you know, when he was announced as a full-time companion, I was hesitant for a season. I was thinking, oh, what a terrible move. Because I think he's also terrible in... The Return of Dr. Mysterio, which was like the Superman episode as well.
That one's okay. It's an okay episode with live action Goku as the superhero.
but then, you know, Nardole turns out to be a great character and actually gets a proper arc. The end of the next episode is really good for Nardole, and nowadays I feel like I should stop judging these comic relief one-off appearances at Christmas, then turning into a full-time companion, because I had the same arc with Catherine Tate as Donna Noble, and then she turns out to be one of the best characters in the show. So I need to stop being so judgmental.
You need to stop being a hater. It sounds like you're just a hater. You need to stop being a hater. But yeah, no, I love Nardole. I love his relationship with the Doctor. I love at the start of the scene when Missy comes out and she's doing all the talking and Nardole hasn't said a word. The Doctor's like, Nardole, stop being annoying. And, like, I love it.
And, you know, just everyone's on fire in this episode. You know, Michelle Gomez, especially, she actually gets some lines of dialogue where she improvises these lines. Like, she adds the little dab that Missy does. She calls George a Smurf. That's on Michelle Gomez. And Michelle Gomez actually credits Rachel Talalay for helping her find the character when we were shooting the Series 8 final together. Like, she says there wouldn't be any Missy without Rachel Talalay, because she gave her the confidence, which is really cool for a director to help out with. And Matt Lucas, I was about to call him Matt Smith. Matt Lucas. Matt Lucas is usually the person to ad-lib a lot of lines on the set, but he actually let Michelle Gomez get a lot of time to improvise and all that in this episode, which is really cool. Really cool. Michelle Gomez is so good in this episode, by the way. Good.
She is incredible. Yeah. The blue man comes out and he's very panicked that there are people coming up the elevator into this section of the ship, and he asks if anybody is a human. And he starts waving a gun around, which causes Capaldi to jump out of the TARDIS because, hey, I'm going to try and stop whatever this is happening because this is getting serious now.
When he asks Missy if she's a human, she says, oh, don't be a bitch, which I think might be the hardest swear on Doctor Who.
Yeah, it's I didn't even catch it the first time. It wasn't until watching it this time with the subtitles on, I was like, don't be a bitch. Jesus Christ, where the fuck that is? That's some, just swearing at the guy.
Yeah, because, you know, I think this actually got some complaints back in the day. I can't be arsed checking the Ofcom records, but I imagine
we'll just make up facts. Yeah, let's just say, yeah.
This is a pretty dark episode to air at 6:45 in the afternoon, basically. Like, it goes dark.
Yeah. It does, but I like Doctor Who when it gets spooky. But what I also like as well is when he starts asking if anybody's a human, waving this gun around. The Capaldi steps out the TARDIS to be like, I'm gonna ease the tensions here, and then Bill's like, oh, I'm a human, and you just see Capaldi's face drop, like, oh shit, she shouldn't have said that, you know, like this just got even more serious than it already was, and it is incredible. And he goes on to give a big speech to the guy who's pointing a gun at Bill, being like, hey, okay, like, you know, I'm the Doctor and I'm going to change your life and I'm going to save you and you're going to think about this moment and this is the decision you had to make to say, like, to change, and then bang, just shoots Bill and everything slows down as we see Capaldi's eye, like, slowly turn his head to see a massive hole through Bill's chest. And it is... like, as we were saying, if this was the cold opening, like, what a goddamn insane way to open an episode.
Yeah. Because I just, you know, when this episode started, I was like, oh yeah, I'm back I'm just laid back on my seat, I'm enjoying myself, and this literally made me jump up the first time I saw it, because it's not something you'd expect in Doctor Who, for a companion to stand there with a hole in her chest. Like, that's
it
pretty
reminds
dark.
me. It reminds me so much of how Clara died. You know, where she's just running through the streets, like, oh, I'm the doctor, I'm going to save the day, and then someone like fires a crow through her chest or something, and she just is just like, oh, she's dead now. And then like she doesn't get saved for like 3 episodes. There's like 3 episodes where Clara's just dead. Like she just got killed and now she's gone. And I remember being like, holy fuck, that's insane. That is such a like ballsy ass decision to make, to just kill off a main companion who's been with the Doctor for years at this point, like at a random fucking episode of the show. And, you know, obviously they backtrack on that and make it very silly. But Bill getting shot at the start of this episode makes me feel those same things where I'm like, oh my god, no, you've killed a companion. What's going on? Like, it just, and you instantly believe it as well. Like, there's no like, oh shit, she'll be okay. No, she's got a big hole in her chest. Like,
yeah, the thing that Stephen Moffat wanted to do was to give Bill like the worst death imaginable and then work a way out of, you know, the death. I mean, I'm not too sure. I've watched both parts recently, and I'm not the biggest fan of how it ends. I think I'm more positive on it from before I watched it. But it's we'll get to that next week. It's very strange. I'm not sure how to feel about it. I think I have to rewatch the pilot before I do next week's episode with you. But we'll talk about that.
I haven't seen episode 12 yet. I only watched episode 11 this morning, so the only thing I remember that happens is she becomes a puddle lady, and it's like, I love my puddle life now, and they go off in their puddle spaceship. But I remember not being a fan of it when it aired. I remember being like, oh, this is kind of silly, and it also reminded me too much of what happened with Clara. Because Clara basically had the same ending where it's like, oh, instead of dying, you get to travel space with your friend now. Woo.
And then also Bill comes back at the Christmas episode and they kind of elaborate on it and go even further with it, which I don't remember being.
I don't remember the Christmas episode really. I only saw it once, so I'm looking forward to watching that again at some point.
Yeah, if all things go well, we're actually going to cover the Christmas episode this Christmas as a nice little tie-in to it. So we'll see how that holds up. I think I have a lot to say about how the first Doctor is handled in that episode.
Gasp! Does he say enough times? We'll find out. But after Bill gets shot, we then cut back through time to them exploring through the university grounds, because of course this is the time of Professor Doctor, and Professor Doctor is the best version of Capaldi's Doctor. Each version improved on the last. The first version of Janitor Doctor, where he's like, am I a good man? That's the worst version of Capaldi's Doctor. The Rockstar Doctor, great version. What a vibe. Love him. But Professor Doctor is what he should have been from the start. Like, what an incredible fucking version of the Doctor to have. You know, he's got his own little office, he's got a place where he could be, he's trying to educate, but he's a snarky, like, Scottish professor that's, you know, got no time for anybody. It's perfect for Capaldi. It's brilliant.
And what I love about the fact that these two people have the same, well, not the same job, but they both work in the same workplace. She works in the kitchen, he's a professor, is we just get time to just kind of unwind in a place that's not the TARDIS. This is their proper job, and they just have time to just talk to each other about what's going on, you know, which is really cool. Yeah. I love when Doctor takes the time to just have a companion and the Doctor just have time to talk, because it reminds you why they're on this together, you know?
Also, we don't see it. I don't remember, at least. I don't think we see it in this episode. But the Doctor's office is like a cozy, like Victorian-esque office, and it's such a nicer place for characters to sit and talk, as opposed to his TARDIS, which I still like. It's better than when it was Matt Smith's one, and it was all silver and chrome. Like, they did some updates to it. They gave it the books and the chalkboard and stuff, and it looks better. But I'm still not a big fan of the really small silver TARDIS. It's not my favorite interior, and it can be kind of cold to look at if you're watching two characters to just talk. Having that warmer environment is much nicer. Yeah,
one thing I'm hoping that the new TARDIS brings, and the new budget, the new improved budget, I hope, because this is one thing they did in the 80s and like the Peter Davison era, is they sometimes had conversations in companions' bedrooms and stuff. Like it felt like a proper house sometimes.
I being able to see more rooms of the TARDIS would be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's something they kind of did at the very start of the show in the 60s, and what they did mostly in the 80s. Just have time to unwind in the TARDIS and just have conversations about what's going on in each other's lives and stuff like that. I want a more of a homely TARDIS. I really want it.
The scene with the flashback is basically them explaining what they're doing with Missy, and the Doctor convincing Bill to go on this journey with Missy, to trust her, that that it's okay, he'll keep her safe, and that we're trying to make Missy good again. And there's some fun meat-eating slander here, where the Doctor's like Missy, Bill calls Missy a murderer, and the Doctor's like, are you enjoying that bacon sandwich because it had a mummy and a daddy? How your morals don't quite work, do they? Which I, as a vegetarian, I agree with. The Doctor is fully on my side, and if you eat meat, then you are a murderer. Scott, you are a murderer.
Yes, I am. This is kind of reminiscent of a line from the very first episode of the season, where the Doctor says, "Hardly anything is evil, but most things are hungry. Hunger looks very much like evil from the wrong end of the cutlery. Or do you think that your bacon sandwich loves you back?" So this is a weird recurring theme in Series 10, I guess.
He just hates bacon sandwiches.
And also, nothing...
It's a really good
nothing... Bacon sandwiches are like the biggest British thing right now, isn't it? Nothing screams British more than bacon sandwiches for some reason.
I don't know if bacon baps are really a thing in like the States or anything, are they?
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange.
Yeah.
I love a good bacon roll, though. I mean, also, the Doctor says at one point, "Oh, it'll be like our usual Saturday," obviously referring to the day of the week the Doctor Who airs, which this next week will be the final Saturday of the show. Hopefully they return to Saturday, because I like Saturdays for Doctor Who better than Sundays.
Yes, I agree. Saturday is a much better time for Doctor Who, especially for people that work jobs and have a podcast about Doctor Who that they would like to record after the episode airs, and would not want to do that after work, and would rather do it right after the episode so that they can get it out on time when everyone's interested, maybe. I don't know. I don't relate to that, though. We then cut to the Doctor trying to convince Bill and Nardole.
Yeah, you're skipping over a great bit of conversation. They go up to the roof of the school, I think.
I was in the kitchen, you son of a bitch.
All right, sorry.
You fuck! I didn't skip over anything. You're skipping.
I thought you were talking about them trying to convince the blue guy, the blue man group.
No, they're in the. Is that in the kitchen? No, Bill and Nardole are in a kitchen, and the doctor's trying to convince them, and this is basically where Bill's like, you want the Master to be good, don't you? You want, more than anything, you want Missy to be good. And Capaldi doesn't say anything. He just turns around. And I am so split about how I feel about the way that they handle Capaldi and emotions, because sometimes it's like, oh, I really like how much he struggles to show emotion and things like that. On the other side, it kind of feels like, the same issue that falls with characters like Abed and stuff, where it's like the autism character without saying it's autism, and it's, how do you have a socially awkward character do socially awkward things? It's like, oh, he's having an emotion right now. But I still think it's handled really well with Capaldi, and it makes me love him more. Much like Abed, I love him more because it's like, he's like me. But
yeah, I think I can understand where you're coming from. I like this interpretation of a 12th Doctor better than, oh, I need cue cards to even begin a conversation, and I like it a lot better than, oh, I'm too socially awkward for this conversation. Just the Doctor having that little private moment to himself feels more human than anything else, really. I really like this little moment here, though.
Yes, I agree. I really like the little moment as well. And I really like Nardole being like, you're having an emotion. Can I get a selfie? Then we get the really good scene that you wanted to skip over with
skip over.
Bill and the Doctor eating some like chips and stuff on the roof, looking up at the stars, where basically Bill's like, hey, you're not going to let me die, are you? And the doctor's like, I can't promise that. And then, like, as those conversations happening, we're cutting to shots of Bill dying, it's just, it makes it even more heartbreaking, you know? Because the doctor's like, I'll try and keep you safe. You know, humans are so silly. Like, you've just got one heart. Like, you like pop like balloons, and then we cut to Bill standing there without a heart, popped like a balloon. You know?
Yeah, it just really goes back to how careless the doctor is at times, because he's basically invulnerable, but his companions aren't for the most part. Maybe Nardole is, but Bill definitely isn't, you know? And also they do have a conversation here where the doctor's like, oh yeah, I knew the master from way back then. He was my man crush. And we get into the conversation about the fact that Time Lords don't have gender stereotypes. They don't have anything to do with genders. They're just, you know, we're just we're very woke.
But again, it's also like something that I really liked about this era of Doctor Who, and with Moffat as well, is I feel like Moffat knew for a fact that Chibnall was going to cast a female as the Doctor.
Definitely, yeah.
You know, and because he sets up, like, even in the 50th, or not even the 50th anniversary, but in the episode, is it Hellbent or Heaven Sent, when the Doctor punches the Time Lords and they regenerate into a woman? You know, so we see that it can happen, and then we meet the Master, and the Master's not the Master, the Master is Missy, and the Master is now a woman. As soon as Missy appeared, I was like, the Doctor's going to be a woman the next time. I was like, they're preparing us as an audience so that we know that this is possible. Like, we've seen it happen with other characters we don't care so much about as the Doctor, so when it happens to the Doctor, we're not going to be like, oh my god, this came out of nowhere, they're doing it for political reasons, you know? Like, no, this is just a thing that can happen. Move past it, we're over this. They established that this could happen ages ago, and I like all of the grunt work that Moffat did to prepare audiences for Chibnall's you know, female version of the Doctor, you know, which I love Jodie as the Doctor, I just don't love her episodes.
I definitely don't think Stephen Moffat, I almost called him Stephen Chibnall.
Stephen Chibnall. That's making some like Doctor Who fan have nightmares right now.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think obviously Stephen Moffat knew that Chibnall would pick a female Doctor, or even that Chibnall would succeed him on the show when he was writing those season 8 episodes. But definitely here, this is written in January 2017, and Jodie Whittaker was announced in July of 2017. So it feels definitely that Stephen Moffat maybe knew that Jodie Whittaker would step into the position, or just that, you know, Chibnall was interested in having a female Doctor. And these conversations are really good because it reminds you the Time Lords can change into anything. It makes complete sense that they would change gender or race. And unfortunately, a lot of people didn't seem to listen, you know? Like,
too busy looking at their phone. I also really like, I was about to say something and it's left my head. I must have not liked it that much. Oh yeah, it was the Doctor. It's like, you know, we're above that, you know, your gender stereotypes and everything like that. We're a higher plane of civilization. And Bill's like, you still call yourself Time Lords though.
Yeah.
Wait. I love that poke. That little poke at Doctor Who lore, where it's the Time Lords are these higher beings and they're way more advanced than us, but Lords still exist.
Yeah, it's one of those things that they talk about with the X-Men. People are always quick to point out X-Men have X-Women as well, so why are they just called exclusively the X-Men? You know?
Yeah, you know, it's like it's a gender neutral term. It's like if you call someone sir in military, like you call sir even if they're a woman. It's just like this is what it is, you know. So it's like you know, we are the X-Men. It's a team name, not a gender name.
I think even one of the terrible prequel movies, either Dark Phoenix or Apocalypse, had what's the blue girl called?
Jennifer
Mystique.
Lawrence.
Jennifer Lawrence and Mystique. Mystique at one point is like, why are they called the X-Men? I'm a woman. And it's like, yeah.
That sounds like something that they would make her say, yeah. It's, what I really like about those prequel movies is Jennifer Lawrence wants to be there less and less in each one. To the point where they kill her off like 5 minutes into the third one. It's amazing.
I don't blame her, to be honest, because
It's bad movies. I was so, oh god, I am. I like the X-Men movies for the most part. They're a mixed bag. X-Men 2 is incredible.
Yep.
First Class is ace.
Days of Future Past. I love Days of Future Past.
Is fun.
Yeah. Especially the Rogue cut, which
I
includes
haven't
the
seen the
scenes
Rogue
of
cut.
Rogue. Basically, what
never
they
saw
did in the theatrical version is they cut out every scene with Rogue in it. She's only in the movie for like 11 minutes, and then the Blu-ray includes every scene of hers, so it's strange.
Interesting.
That's why it's called the
Yeah.
Rogue cut.
Yeah. But yeah, they're a mixed bag for sure. But as Bill collapses dead, the blue guy then goes to shoot the doctor, or like point a gun at the doctor, and Missy stops it.
And also,
it's like, hey.
again, just great special effects on the whole, because we see it from like 3 or 4 different angles, and each one looks impressive. Yes. And even Bill falling, that looks impressive because we don't cut away from it. We just see the proper perspective of what it would look like. And, it looks really solid. It looks really good.
It does. Yeah. And some men come and take Bill away. Does this happen in the scene? I think it does, doesn't it?
Yes.
They come and they take her away and they stick her into an elevator. And we don't see who these people are, but now, we have the rest of our episode set up for us.
Yeah.
Let's try and save Bill, basically. And the doctor's going to explain how time works in this spaceship, because it's very fucking fancy. It's cool. And he also, he separates, and I think this is the best feature that his sonic screwdriver has ever had. And I did not remember that this is what it did, because, again, this version of the sonic screwdriver we never see. I much prefer the sonic shades, but, he's got his screwdriver back. It's whatever. It looks like a toy. But he takes it off the bottom, and it's also a marker pen.
Yeah.
And I fucking love that. I love that it's just also a pen. That's great.
Yeah, it's such a great idea, because obviously he's a lecturer now, and he needs the opportunity to write on, I guess, whiteboards, because you can't do it on blackboards. Yeah. But I guess maybe the other side has chalk instead. But yeah, the scene where Bill is being pulled into the elevator is creepy as fuck. And this is where you can really get the horror elements of the episode. And one of the downsides of Doctor Who airing in middle June around this time is it is light as fuck outside. When you're watching this at 7 o'clock on an evening in June or July.
It looks like 12 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah. And I just remember the first time I watched this, I'm like, I wish Doctor Who would land in the fall again, or the autumn, sorry, I go American for some reason.
What the fuck was that about?
But when it's dark and cold outside and you're snuggled up in the dark and watching Doctor Who, especially a creepy episode like this. When I watched this the other night, I had my lights off, I watched it on my TV, and it's just creepy as hell,
Yeah, I watched it this morning when it was still kind of dark outside, and I was all cozy in a big snuggly blanket. I had coffee, I had some bagels. Best way to watch Doctor Who.
Hell yeah.
Best way. The episode continues on as Bill wakes up at the lower end of the ship after being experimented on and turned into part Cyberman by these people, and we see Doctor Strange, not Doctor Strange, who's the guy from Batman with the glasses, and he's God, what's his name? Have you ever played Arkham City?
Are you talking about Scarecrow?
No. There's a scientist guy in Batman who has little round glasses.
Dr. Hugo Strange. Is that his name?
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was Doctor Strange. Just Doctor Strange. It was like that. Marvel, but no, Doctor Hugo Strange, I guess, makes it different.
Well, which Doctor Strange came first? Hugo Strange came out in 1940, so it's like a good 25 years almost. Marvel really ripping off from DC.
When don't they?
But the guy who plays the Doctor is really good, because he kind of has like a soft-spoken voice, but yet he's shot so harshly, because he's not really a villain. He's just saving Bill's life here. He's saving everyone on the ship by converting them. That's the whole plan. He's not supposed to be sinister, but at the same time, he obviously is sinister. So it's a good choice of cast, I would say.
Yeah, I know it's fun. Also, we like never see him really again, besides
He
maybe a
does-
few brief moments.
Yeah. He's a fun character. Though.
But we then end up meeting this weird, strange dude, whose name I don't even remember. What's the name of this character? The guy with the hat. You know, what's his name?
With an R.
Does it? I'm just gonna call him the Master.
I wrote it down somewhere. Why would you call him the Master when there's already a Master in this episode? That doesn't even make sense.
He gives me John Sim vibes. You know, like I feel like this guy could have played the Master with David Tennant's era if he was around then. You know, I feel like he's an equal level actor as John Sim. I feel like they're both as good as each other. If not, this guy's a little bit better, even probably.
So you're gonna call me a fucking idiot here. When the first time I watched this, I did not catch what this guy was the Master because I was just so into the facts about what was going on with Bill, because that came as a total shock to me. But I didn't realize the Master was right in front of me the entire time. I just completely forgot about the Master being in this episode for some reason.
I mean that just means it's a good episode, really, doesn't it? You know, that's just you're not thinking about the information that got spoiled to you already. You're enamored in the story, and you're not trying to out-puzzle or outthink the episode. You're along for the ride. You know, that's a sign of a quality episode.
Because we got spoiled about both the Cybermen, which I remembered, and the Master reveal, but we didn't get spoiled about the fate of Bill, what happens to her in this episode. So that was really cool. It was like, I didn't mind in the end that we got spoiled about the Master or the Cybermen, which really did help because there's a lot more going on with this episode. It's not just waiting around for like a plot twist towards the end. There's so much more details going on compared to, let's say, the Pandorica opens, which is just waiting for the Pandorica to open.
Yeah, because I mean, if you really boil down this episode, it shares a lot of similarities with the Pandorica opens in that it's people waiting around while the Doctor tries to explain the plan to them, but because of the way that time works on the ship, it takes forever for him to explain the plan. But there's something more compelling about how this is going on because what happens to Bill is so unexpected, and then you're along with her being like, oh, this is creepy, this is horror, this is scary, what's going on? Because we care about Bill and we care about, you know, a companion getting shot through the goddamn chest.
Yeah, and this whole hospital setting is inspired by the fact that Stephen Moffat was spending a lot of time with his ill mother. She actually died when he was writing this episode. So he spent a lot of time with her at the hospital and just began thinking about how kind of grave being in a hospital is with a dying loved one. And he wanted a dark operatic venue so that children wouldn't really recognize it as a proper hospital, because, you know, if children are going to visit their grandmothers on the Monday after this episode airs, they're going to be terrified, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know,
I think he does a good job with that.
Yeah. And, you know, we were talking about when we did Stolen Earth and Journey's End, that, you know, Russell T Davies was under a lot of pressure, but I think Stephen Moffat was probably under more pressure here because, you know, losing a loved one is not fun. It is not fun.
No. Famously one of the least cool things that can happen.
Yep. Well said.
We see. I should write eulogies. We then see Ghost Peter Capaldi telling Bill to wait for him as Peter Capaldi used his psychic powers to imprint his mind into Bill's to be like, hey, yo, I'm still coming to save you. Don't worry. Don't even worry about it.
Yeah,
and this is a recurring thing. We see Ghost Capaldi quite a bit.
Yeah, he did a mind meld like in he just did in
Star
The Big
Wars.
Bang, which we covered last week or the week before. I can't remember.
Yeah. Then Bill gets up and decides to explore around this creepy facility as the words pain, pain echo throughout, and it's straight up horror-esque. Like there's some full-on body horror stuff going on in this episode, and it's incredible. Like, it feels scary watching it, and I love that when Doctor Who when it comes to Doctor Who, you know.
Yeah.
Because it's this fun family show, except when it isn't, and it's just straight up you're scared and hiding, and that's what I think Moffat did really, really well. And whenever he talks in interviews, he always talks about how that's his favorite part. He loves scaring kids, you know.
Even going back to the first episode Moffat did, The Empty Child, that episode scared the shit out of me as a kid, especially the part where the Doctor is getting infected and he's just choking up a gas mask. That's terrifying, you know?
Yeah, I remember that being a real scary episode as a kid as well.
But yeah, Rachel Talalay does great work with the atmosphere here, and Murray Gold does a great score where it's like a lady singing opera music in the background eerily. It's really creepy stuff, and shouldn't have been. I think it should have been aired in like October or something, rather than the middle of June.
Yeah, but you gotta have room for Strictly, man. Strictly makes that money, you know. Bill continues through and she sees a heap of people all wrapped up in masks and medical gowns as the pain echoes around, and then head nurse lady comes bursting in with guy that's definitely not John Sim, and she's like, oh, we'll deal with this dude, don't even worry about it. There you go, that's better. As she touches like this fluid tank that's next to him, and it gives the illusion that she's maybe giving him more morphine or something, she's helping him out. But when Bill investigates it, she sees that she just turned the volume down on the guy's speakers that were saying pain, which is just brilliantly dark,
Oh yeah, and it's kind of like the healthcare system under the Tory government, but they did have to change the design of the patients very late in the game because they realized it kind of looked like the Cybermen had cyber boobs, so they had to remove the chest plates at the very last minute.
No. Where is our cyber women? I need cyber women to come back, please. Cyber boobs for the peak of the Cybermen design.
We should do that tortured episode eventually, and the sex
It's
gas
a mental
episode.
It's a mental episode.
Terrible.
Like the fucking the pterodactyl that comes in the end that just eat the lady. Like insane episode. Absolutely insane. Bill looks at another patient and they're saying, kill me, instead of pain. She then looks out the window to like a smoking city before being almost grabbed by one of the patients that gets quickly knocked out by not John Sim. And he's now like, hey, we're going to become best friends and you're gonna come like hang out with me a bunch. It's okay. We're chill. And he's really fun. I really like the performance that he's giving in this episode.
Oh god, he is fantastic in this episode. It's really fun to see a master disguise for the first time in
forever.
35 years maybe. It's been a long time.
Well, it depends on what you count as like a disguise, because like when he first showed up as the master, I guess we knew he was the master because we saw him regenerate. And then, because when Derek Jacobi, when he regenerates and we see him turn into John Sim, then John Sim goes off to Earth, and I guess he's technically in disguise. It's more hiding in plain sight because he's like, I'm the Prime Minister now, but like he's like nobody knows he's the Master except us and the Doctor. And I don't remember if when Missy shows up, if she's straight away like, I'm the Master, or if she tries to pretend to be someone else first. I don't remember Missy's reveal.
The whole mystery about season 8 was, who is this mysterious woman? Eventually she's like, well, I can't keep calling myself the Master, can I? But it wasn't really a disguise. She just walked around and stuff.
Just teasing, and kept killing people.
But when I refer to a disguise, I mean like a full, like an acting student.
yeah.
Like, and they do something clever here where he's disguised for a reason. It's because Bill would recognize her former prime minister, although I guess he wasn't. I guess he was only prime minister for like a month or something, because that whole year got erased.
Yeah.
It's like
I guess.
if you saw Liz Truss walking
Liz
around,
Truss, yeah.
you wouldn't recognize her, would you? You're completely forgetting about her.
I don't know how you can forget about a lady that assassinated the Queen and then assassinated the Pound, all in the span of 4 weeks, or like 8 weeks, or however long she was actually in
45
power.
days.
Like,
It was
yeah,
mental.
you know,
One of my
like, it's
favorite,
like incredible. Like,
one of my favorite lines here is where Bill's like, "Shouldn't we help them or something?" And John Sim is like, "We're fine. We're totally fine." And Bill's like, "We're screaming. We're in pain." And John Sim is like, "Oh, that was a clever lie. You saw straight through me. That's a proper. He is still properly the Prime Minister here, just lying for his teeth."
when is this version of John Sim's Master supposed to be? Because this is before Skeleton Master, I would imagine.
No, after, definitely
After
because obviously
this is
next
after
week he
Skeleton
regenerates.
Master. Yeah, of course, yeah, goddamn. Oh,
Yeah.
it makes even less sense.
I know.
How did he
it
stop being a skeleton cannibal?
don't fucking worry about it. It's a master. Once you get more
Lives, he got
familiar
away.
with
that's it.
once
he
you get
he
more
gets away with it.
once you get more familiar with the classic series, he dies all the fucking time and always comes
That's what
back.
I mean. That was the thing in Series 8 as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or Series 9 even, when like Moffat was like killed off Missy in like every single episode and just kept bringing her back because he was like, it's funny. Like that's what the Master does. The Master dies and then just comes back. Like, and they just say like, oh, I escaped. Like,
Somehow the master has returned.
yeah. But John Sim takes Bill into his like little workshop place, his little wee home that he stays in. And he goes on to explain that Bill's now hanging out at the bottom of the ship instead of the top of the ship, and that they fixed her up and given her a new heart and turned her into a cyber person type person thing kind of guy. There's some fun dialogue about tea where he's like, "Hey, do you want the good tea or the bad tea?" And Bill's like, "The good tea. What's the difference?" He's like, "No difference. I just named them different things. You know, it's nice to have a positive attitude." Which is just it's a really fun back and forth. They have amazing chemistry together. Like I instantly,
they really do.
like stepping out of this being the Master. Like I instantly believe their friendship as being genuine. You know.
Yeah, I guess that's why I was tricked, because the Master hasn't really done anything like this for the longest time, and all of a sudden here's this new character who's really lovely, maybe helping Bill out, but and also I really like this set here because it feels lived in, and it feels like a technician kind of set. It feels like when we're at college, it feels like you could just rent a camera from this guy or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's Series 10 did this so well of making the sets feel like places. Like we talked about this earlier in the episode with Capaldi's like office space, like there's locations in Series 10 where it's like, oh, this doesn't feel like a set right now, which, goes away later on in Doctor Who, where you're like, you're not standing together, this is a fake background behind you.
Yeah, like this whole episode, the whole set of this episode is incredible. Not for a second you don't believe it's not like a hospital or a spaceship.
Yeah.
It's really well constructed. I will say some of the exterior scenes in the city of a spaceship is a bit wonky sometimes. I think that's mostly next episode, but it's still pretty solid.
Yeah, no, it's a good time. Bill then notices the TV screen is playing an episode of classic Doctor Who. Wait, no, it's not. That's live video cam footage of Peter Capaldi in black and white. And she's saying that the picture is frozen, but we go on to learn that the picture is not frozen. It is simply moving slower than they are because of the big old black hole out the way, which Peter Capaldi then goes on to explain in a very fun scene with him drawing on one of the whiteboards with his sonic screwdriver pen, explaining how as you approach a black hole, time slows down, and so as the ship is approaching the black hole, the front of the ship is moving slower through time than the back end of the ship. So if you're at the front of the ship, you are moving slowly in time. The back end of the ship, you are moving quicker. So time moves fast with Bill, moves slow with Capaldi, which they also showcase really well, I think, with the two clocks, where you've got the
Yes.
top of the ship clock where it's like 2 days have passed, and the bottom of the ship where it's like 5 years, you know. I think that's a really good way of showcasing it as well, because it is a trippy concept, but it's a really fun concept for a set piece as well. It's so cool.
And it's explained really well, to the point where it's not explained too well, you know. Sometimes they overindulge with the explanation. But, you know, I think little kids will understand what's going on here. And the time dilation storyline was actually suggested by Joshua Moffat, who was then 17. And he went on an internship at CERN in Geneva over the summer of 2016. He told his dad about the phenomenon of time dilation and thought the idea would be great for Doctor Who because it wasn't something that featured in science fiction a lot. And Joshua even did some maths for this episode to suggest a viable scale for the concept in the episode. So, really smart kid, apparently, using real life science, which is cool.
That's really cool. Yeah.
You know, the whole basis of the Cyberman was invented by an actual real life scientist. I think we need more science in Doctor Who because it's fun, you know? Science is fun, dude.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's really cool. That's really cool. Then we get a really strange scene with Bill.
Before that, as Bill is approaching the television trying to work things out, the score kind of starts to quote the Harold Saxon song, the Harold Saxon theme song, or the Master theme song from Series 3, where the violins kind of ramp up. Which is interesting, which, again, I should have picked that out, but I didn't. I didn't realize it.
You're a silly guy. You're a silly guy. But we then get a scene where the head nurse comes in and is like, "Oi, you work for me, remember that?" And Bill's like, "Oh, it's a good thing that you put locks on the doors so I can't get out of here." And I don't really feel like this scene is necessary because we already know... Like, we know that they're trying to keep Bill in here. We've had that established already, and Bill seems more enamored with the Doctor and stuff, and she's got that psychic message saying, "Hey, stay here." I don't know if we need a third reason, you know, that she can't leave because the doors are locked and the head nurse is like a total bitch towards her. Like, it just... And we like this character, this head nurse lady, I don't even remember what she does later on in the episode. Like, I don't... It feels just like, oh, this is another thing, you know, here's another reason not to go anywhere in case you needed that. Episode then continues on as we get a really fun montage of Bill and John Sim watching the Doctor explain the time dilation thing as months go by with them, and we see that their relationship deepen and grow into a tighter, stronger bond as they're becoming basically roommates. You know, they're friends watching classic episodes of Doctor Who where it's like, God, nothing happened in this episode, but I'm not going to stop watching because maybe something will eventually happen in 2 weeks or 2 months or 4 months when they finish the story, you know?
Oh, God, could you imagine talking about Doctor Who every single week with your best friend?
I think I'd kill myself. I'd kill myself.
But one of my favorite bits comes from this montage where Peter Capaldi is trying to explain it to the Smurf man, and he's like, "What's the matter? Didn't you go to space school?" And the camera zooms right in on Peter Capaldi, which, again, we just covered the Big Bang, which has
Florida.
Space Florida.
Yes.
And in between recording that episode and this episode, the last episode of Futurama came out where we talk about Space Italy. So it's a really funny, the professor is running a simulation in Futurama, and the characters start talking about Space Italy, and Amy's like, Space Italy, that's a bit of a fake name. And the professor is like, "Well, I got lazy, okay?" Although this is more of the funny side, you know, it's Stephen Moffat being funny.
Yeah, Space School's a great line. Space Florida's a great line. Space Italy's a great line. Space anything. Space blank, great. That's a funny joke.
Yeah,
it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, one of my favorite things in Futurama is the Space Pope, who's like a reptilian.
Bill then is mopping the floors of one of the medical rooms, and she decides to look out the window onto this smoky city that's on the bottom of this spaceship, and we see Ghost Capaldi being like, "Yo, wait for me still, just have some patience." And we see that Bill's getting a little bit tired of waiting, where she asks the ghost in her head, "How much longer do I need to wait, Doctor?" and it's just some really fun stuff. This is a really well paced episode. Like I absolutely love this episode.
Again, it's one of those situations where, again, nothing much is happening, just characters waiting, but we get little character dynamics we never see before. We get really funny lines. It's a great montage. It's some eerie stuff. It's such a fun episode so far.
Yeah, it really is. Also, like, I love Bill. I think she's one of my favorite companions. I don't know what it is. Like, she's only in one season. She doesn't really do much, and I don't remember exactly enjoying her arc. But I wanted to see more of her. I think I was sad that she only got one series because I feel like there was so much potential, and I really liked her chemistry with Capaldi. As much as I loved Capaldi and Clara, like, I feel like especially in that first season with Capaldi and Clara, where all that Danny Pink stuff gets mixed up, and it just becomes nonsense. You know, it completely ruined that series. And then to finally be like, okay, like, because especially at this point, I was so sick of Clara. To have a companion that's like, oh my god, it's not Clara, I love you. Like, of course, now I love Clara. She's one of my favorites because I've had to live through Yaz. But
you know, the thing I go back to with Bill is what I liked about the Doctor and Ace together. It's a student-professor kind of relationship. It's like a...
I mean, they also have hints to Ace with Bill's outfit having the badges and the, like, explosion stuff on it, you know?
And also the fact that they're both gay. Or Ace is kind of gay. It's hinted at towards in the classic series, but it's never really brought back when Ace came back.
I mean, if anything, maybe more bi. Like, she did fall in love with that Nazi in that one episode.
True.
You know, yeah.
And she did fall in love with that cat lady in Survival, which we might cover soon.
Who didn't?
Yeah, but yeah, the thing about and also it's like one of the only relationships in New Who that isn't romantic, because there's only been Catherine Tate and Bill. That's the only two relationships that's never hinted at towards romantically. I mean, I kind of think of Yaz as being overcompassing of the entirety of the 13th Doctor era. So I don't include like Graham or Ryan or Dan in that scenario, or even like Captain or
Nardole.
True.
Although I suppose the romantic energy between Nardole and the Doctor, like, it's palpable. Like, you know, you can taste it almost.
But I mean, in terms of like main companion, Bill's the main companion. Nardole was comic relief.
He's a sidekick. Yeah, he's the sidekick. Yeah, no, I get that. I like that as well. I like not having romance with the companions. It's refreshing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Millie Gibson and Shuri Gatwa together, because what Millie Gibson describes the relationship as is like two school friends just giggling and gossiping, and I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to that as well, and I really hope Russell T Davies can restrain from making it into another Rose situation. I really hope he can hold himself back. So the episode continues as we cut back up to the Doctor with the blue guy, and he's like, hey, there's a lot of dudes here, what's going on? And the Doctor's like, we don't have time to talk about lots of dudes, we've got to get down to the ship. And he like karate chops the dude. Because Peter Capaldi is a big fan of John Pertwee, even down to his outfit.
And Capaldi spent a lot of
karate.
And Capaldi spent a lot of time with Mark Gatiss studying John Pertwee, doing Venusian Aikido. I always get that mixed up. Venusian Aikido.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's a classic karate moves that John Pertwee would often use, which is why I really like John Pertwee. He's a man of science and a man of action.
Yeah. And it's fun to see the Doctor doing some actiony stuff with Capaldi as well. As he's flipping over the guy, though, we teleport away down to the bottom of the ship, where we see Bill as she's looking on in horror as a bunch of the people getting worked on are led through into another room, and one of them looks at her with beady little eyes and says, "Die me. Die me." Which is just lovely and dark. Some lovely dark stuff.
Yeah, and it's like 7:15 on a Saturday evening, watching this with your family. It's very strange. You're just listening to this Cyberman basically want to commit suicide the entire time.
Then Bill and John Sim decide to have a little walk through the streets and see how awful everything is and how turning them into Cybermen is a must because the world has turned to ruin. There's toxic fumes everywhere and they need to be like not organic beings anymore essentially to survive. And this is I guess it's just to explain why people are volunteering for this surgery and why the surgery is happening, and so like we as an audience can understand a little bit more, and we get told that this is Operation Exodus, which is important stuff, and this is all done on a very bad green screen, but to be fair, you could slot this into Flux and I wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
To be fair, it's 2017, the budget is quite low at this point, and also, again, what I said at the beginning of the episode, we only had 6 weeks of post-production for this episode, so the fact that it looks decent enough is good enough, you know? The rest of the episode looks spectacular, it's just this bit outside in the exterior scene where it's shot on green screen that doesn't look so good, but, you know, the rest of the CGI of the episode looks great. Like, it really holds up most of the episode. Of course, and also it helps explain it to Bill as well, so she's not out of the loop about what's happening here. It's really natural exposition the whole episode through, I would say.
Yeah. We then cut back to the Doctor absolutely demolishing that dude as he goes on to explain that it is Venusian Aikido, and Nardol's like, but I thought you needed 4 arms for that, and the Doctor's like, I've got lots of hidden talents and hidden arms, which is a fun nonsense line. And they decide to open up the elevator and climb on inside to go and just rescue Bill, because they're sick of standing around waiting, as the longer that they wait up there, even more time passes down below, so they're not going to risk it.
Something the Doctor should have done like 10 minutes ago.
Immediately, yeah. Instead of taking forever to explain, by the way, time moves slower up here than it does down there. Explain that on the way, maybe. Once you get down, you know, be like, I have to rush because up there, like, seconds would have gone by and months would have gone by down here. So now we're down here, I can take the time to explain this. Like,
you know, it's been like, I think 2 years for Bill at this point, or something like that.
Yeah.
It's been a long time for Bill, poor old Bill. Like, the Doctor just waiting is a bit odd.
Yeah. We then get a scene with Bill and John Sim that's very fun, where she's asking him, like, when am I, like, what's going on, when am I getting out of here, like, what are we waiting for? And he's like, oh, you're like a mother to me. And she's like, no, I'm not. She's like, oh, maybe an aunt, I don't know. It's some fun stuff. And she gives him a big hug when he's like, oh, I guess I'll tell you if you ask me again. And there's some even more fun banter when he's like, oh, my heart, it hurts when you hug me because of your chest. Your big metal chest unit stabs right into me. Which is some fun, light comedic beats for what turns into a very dark ending.
What I love about this is that the scene ends with Bill kind of looking concerned and looking down at herself because she doesn't quite realize what's going on yet. The reality hasn't sunk in, even though it's been years. She still thinks she's normal Bill, but she's not, is she?
Yeah. No. It's very tragic. Then we see John Sim with the burglary mask on. And it's an iconic look, really. It's like a homeless superhero, really.
Wait. Are you sure that's John Sim wearing the burglar mask?
I'm not sure. I can't tell with the mask anymore.
It's such a good disguise. You would never tell who that is underneath a burglar mask.
Yeah. It's a pretty amazing mask. He's got a key to the surgery room because he cleans it on Wednesdays, and he takes Bill in, but it turns out to be a trap to turn her into a Cyberman because she needs to have the surgery because her chest unit apparently won't suffice by itself. Eventually it's going to run out and she'll need to get the full thing. There's a fun line with John Sim, where he's like, look at that guy's hat. I hope I get a hat like that. I'm going to request one with the metal head. And it's some fun stuff.
My favorite line is when the Doctor recognizes him and he's like, hey, you're John Sim. And John Sim's like, oh, damn it, you saw through my disguise. It's such a good disguise.
Which is some fun, that's a fun double entendre, because it's like, oh, you saw through my disguise, talking about the burglary mask and, instead of the actual disguise that he's wearing at the minute. Little wink wink. We also find out that the little head thing that goes around the Cyberman mask is to stop them caring about pain. I guess that's some Cyberman lore about how the Cybermen work. So that's fun. I would
think so. Yeah, there has to be some purpose to that. Headphones, basically.
I like the alternate universe Cybermen when they gave out the Bluetooth headsets, and then it was like, haha, they've turned into cyber heads, and now you're a Cyberman. It's all I think about whenever I see those wireless, like Bluetooth phones, basically, that you stick in your ears. It's ruined them for me. The only thing I can think about is turning into a Cyberman.
I'm wearing Bluetooth headphones or earphones right now, so I'm about to be converted.
The Doctor and Bill, the Doctor, Missy, and Nardole, Bill's not there, come out onto the lower decks of the ship some more, and the Doctor's like, hey, Nardole, you've got to come with me while Missy stays at the computer, because she's smart, I guess, smarter than you, Nardole. It's really just some whatever reasoning to get Missy away from the Doctor at this point. There's no real reason that he would separate away from Missy other than the plot needed him to, why not keep Nardole at the computer? But
it's just because Peter Capaldi realizes we're about 40 minutes into the episode. The cliffhanger is about to come up soon. This is part 1. The episode won't resolve, so there needs to be a cliffhanger. So Missy needs to be on her own.
Yes, and almost immediately, like the second the Doctor walks away, John Sim makes himself present in this room, and he's like, ha ha ha, hello, and he speaks in supposedly coded language to Missy, where he's like, oh, you've been here before, you don't remember this happening? That's so strange. And like the second he starts talking like that, I feel like the game is up. Like, it's so obvious that the twist is that he's the master at this point, because the dialogue is so on the nose, but Missy is just blank faced the entire time. She does not get it until he takes off the mask. Like,
my favorite line is where John Sim's like, oh, you have been here before, trust me, which was Harold Saxon's catchphrase when he was running for Prime Minister, trust me. So it takes Missy a very long time to catch on, but to be fair, she's kind of distracted right now, to be fair.
Yeah, a tiny little bit, because she's discovering that the planet that everyone is from is not Earth, like she first suspected, because there was a bunch of humans on board, but it was an Earth-like planet that it turns out to be Mondas. And I think when I was watching this at 17, like, I knew what Mondas was, and I knew what the Mondas Cybermen were, but it didn't really have much of an impact on me, because I was like, I had never seen the episode with the original Cyberman, so I was like, oh, it's the original Cyberman, that's cool, but I wasn't like, oh shit, no way. Like, I was like, that's a fun reference.
Yeah, I think the first time I saw the 10th Planet was in 2013, right before the 50th anniversary, so I saw it 5 years before this, and I kind of love the 10th Planet because the Cybermen are so great in it. As an episode itself, it's not so great. We covered the 10th Planet, if you want to go back.
We did.
It was about a year ago, exactly. Last October, I believe. A long time ago.
That's crazy.
We had fun doing that, but...
Yeah, some cool Cybermen stuff. The Doctor and Nardole are then like, hey, what's happened to Bill? What's going on here? There's some strange Cyberman stuff. Then they open the door to see one of these Mondasian Cybermen, and the Doctor's like, oh my god, it's a Mondasian Cyberman.
Peter Capaldi really likes saying the phrase Mondasian Cyberman. You can tell. He just delights in it every time. But the lighting, just him opening the door, and we only see the boots, and he's like, that looks vaguely familiar. Just such a great reveal of a Cyberman, but such a great reveal.
It is a really great reveal, and what I really, really like and what I really appreciate is they kept the design of the Mondasian Cybermen as accurate as they possibly could to the original design.
Oh god, yes.
You know, like they're like wearing balaclavas instead of like giant metal masks, you know, and it looks so 1960s, it's unbelievable. But it's
Rachel
incredible.
Talalay
Like it's
really
somehow
worked hard. Yeah.
Yeah?
Sorry, we kind of broke up there. But Rachel Talalay really worked hard to make it as accurate as possible, but she made a few changes. One of these changes actually upset Peter Capaldi quite a bit. If you remember when we did the 10th Planet, we actually spoke a bit about this, where the Cybermen are basically covered from head to toe, but their hands are still the human hands. And in this episode, the Cyberman hands are actually covered with gloves. And Rachel Talalay explained that the gloves was needed because Pearl Mackey's skin tone would have given the Cyberbill twist away. And yeah, I think this makes sense. And I think it works really well for this episode because, you know, Bill's a proud black woman. She's proud of being gay as well. And she just basically got converted. And Cyberman would want to hide her race, you know? It's really creepy.
Yeah, her uniform.
Yeah, her identity has just been stripped away, so hiding all of her skin really works well for this design. It really works for me.
Yeah, no, I didn't even catch on, and they make the gloves they're wearing like almost pale as well, so you can kind of get away with thinking that, you know, when the Mondasian Cybermen, the original design, maybe that isn't hands, maybe they're just wearing flesh-covered gloves, you know, flesh-colored gloves even. And I get why it would upset a hardcore fan like Capaldi, who's like a massive dork in real life, but it's a design choice that I think makes a lot of sense.
It
and
really
I
does.
love how the Mondasian Cybermen look in this episode.
Yeah. Actually, Moffat, the whole reason why the Mondasian Cybermen are in this episode was as a gift to Peter Capaldi. Moffat wrote him as a gift to him. Capaldi expressed he wanted them back during the series 8th DVD launch Q&A in 2014. So this was a gift to Peter Capaldi, which is really cool. And he gave gifts to other actors, like Tennant really wanted to work with the Zygons, so that was written in Day of the Doctor. Karen Gillan, or Karen Killen, as I wrote here for some reason. Karen Gillan wanted a death by the Weeping Angels as well, so that's the whole reason why I guess the Weeping Angels was written into The Angels Take Manhattan.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And,
got love
you know,
Moffat, so generous.
And, you know, the whole plot in this episode was inspired by Peter Capaldi loosely. In 2015, Capaldi was interviewed on Doctor Who The Fan Show on YouTube, where he expressed he'd like the Mondasian Cybermen become Time Lords, which fucking Chibnall kind of stole. But in the same interview, he said the phrase Genesis of a Cyberman. He wanted the Genesis of a Cyberman, which is what John Sims says in like 5 minutes from now. So, obviously, Stephen Moffat was listening to Peter Capaldi.
Yeah, which is cool. And, you know, like, he's really a resource if you have him on the show that you want to be listening to. Because there's not many people that are larger fans of Doctor Who than Peter Capaldi. You know, he's got a proven track record.
You know, Stephen Moffat, Peter Capaldi, and Matt Lucas, they're huge Doctor Who nerds, and Rachel Talalay really had to work hard on researching classic Doctor Who because she grew up on Star Trek, obviously because she's American, so she really worked hard to really capture the tone of the Cybermen, and she really did such a great job here. It's incredible how well the Cybermen are presented in this episode.
Yeah, no, they're real good, and they feel intimidating while looking so extremely silly. Like, it's incredible.
They kind of do look silly, but it kind of works for what the Cybermen are. You know, it's limited resources. Of course, you're just going to use like a ski mask. It works really well for the design, I think.
Yeah, no, I really like it. And then we get a reveal of the Master taking off his mask as he's like, oh, I've got to wear this mask, you know, as I'm someone's former prime minister. And we see him as Mr. John Sim with his lovely goatee, which is the best look John Sim's Master's ever had.
God.
It's, well, I mean like bleach blonde hair skeleton guy, like that is S tier. That is S tier for sure. And this is maybe just a step below that, but it's still pretty good. I like bleach blonde skeleton guy. He's iconic.
John Sim actually grew the goatee himself and basically went up to Stephen Moffat saying, "Look at this. Isn't it such a great look? We should go back to the goatee master." And if you remember, in 2007, Stephen Moffat wrote the Children in Need sketch, Time Crash, where it's Peter Davison and David Tennant on a TARDIS together, and it's set straight after the Doctor meets the Master for the first time in years. And Peter Davison's first question is, does the Master still have a shit beard? It really does work well. It looks great.
Yeah, I hope the next version of the Master, whatever we see, or whenever we see them come back, I hope they have a goatee again. I think, there's not enough, like, goatees used to be a staple of evilness.
Oh, God, yeah.
I don't think, when was the last time you saw an evil goatee? It's been so long.
I'm trying to think myself.
So
yeah,
I could think Community, but that was even before this episode, and then this episode. This could be the last time I saw an evil goatee.
And Community was just a reference to Star Trek, wasn't it? Like Evil Spock, yeah.
It's just a reference to evil. It's just a reference to being evil.
Yeah,
like evil people have goatees.
It was specifically about. Wasn't Abed playing like an evil clone?
It's the evil universe. Yeah, it's the dark universe, the darkest timeline. So everyone gets goatees because they're evil now.
Oh God, we need to do Inferno where everyone's evil, but the Brigadier wears an eye patch. It's such a great episode. We need to do that.
We get the reveal that the Cyberman talking to the Doctor is actually Bill Potts, and the Doctor's very upset about this, and he's like, "Oh my God, Bill, how did I let this happen?" Then Missy comes in, and she's like, "Oh well, really, this is part of the plan, by the way." And then we hear Mr. John Sim's voice, and Capaldi's Doctor is like, "Oh Christ, how is this happening?" And John Sim shows up looking just spectacular as the Master. He's got such an amazing grin when he's standing next to him, and it's the best look the Master's had with John Sim. He looks ace. And Missy's like, "Oh, I'm evil now, by the way, ha ha ha." And the Doctor looks on all very sad as we zoom in to Bill's eye, and we see her flesh as she lets go of a tear, and then that tear goes on to form like the classic teardrop you see in the other Cybermen designs, like the eyes off like the alternate universe Cybermen. They all have this weird tear design on their eye, and that kind of goes to mimic that, which is some nice imagery. And also a ghost. It's also a ghost lady.
Yeah, it's also a ghost lady. Yes, we'll get to that next week. But yeah, John Sim is fantastic in this story. I'm not a big fan of John Sim's Master during the Russell era, but this is where John Sim really finds his material. He's really good in this episode and the next episode, because he's not over the top goofy like in the Russell era. And at the end of Time panel, John Sim announced he didn't expect to come back to the show, but told Moffat privately that he'd love to come back. And John Sim was actually upset he wasn't invited back for the 50th anniversary. And Moffat knew how much fun it would be to do a multi-master story, which has never been done before or since on screen, which is wild to think about how many multi-Doctor stories we've had, but only one multi-master story. It's insane.
That is insane.
Although
but
it doesn't help when
it would get.
Yeah, it doesn't help that most of the masters are dead. It's a sad reality.
That's true. Also, like plot-wise, like how many times can you really show the villain teaming up with himself to try and take over the universe before it's like, oh, we're doing this again? Like you get maybe 1 or 2 times that you can actually do that. Whereas when the Doctor meets up, it's like, oh, this is fun. Yay, my favorite Doctors. Woo, the hero. Like.
Yeah, so Moffat needed time to firmly establish Missy as a character before doing a multi-master storyline, and he phoned Russell D. Davis to make sure he was okay with his master coming back, and Russell agreed because he really loved Missy, and the two men joked that the season should end with Missy telling the Doctor and the Master that she was pregnant, which is an interesting joke.
I mean, that would have melted the Doctor Who fan. Like, the Whoniverse would have caught fire if that happened, you know?
And John Sim then binge-watched all of the Capaldi episodes and loved Missy as a character. He didn't want to go back to review his own episodes because he was playing an older master, so that's why his performance is kind of different, I would say. It really works because, you know, you believe that time has passed because John Sim does look visibly older here. And I like an older master. I like an older John Sim master. I really hope he comes back eventually.
I also like it leads. I'm really curious as to what John Sim thought of the Danny Pink storyline. Like, what did he think about that? What did he think about the episode "Kill the Moon"? What was his thoughts on that one? I'd love to know what you thought about a lot of the episodes, especially a lot of the episodes in Series 8.
Not the best season, let's say.
What did he think about the Forest of the Night? You know,
and we kind of alluded to this earlier, but this got leaked very early on. I think it was like a full week before Series 10 even aired that we found out that John Sim was returning, which was a huge shame. At the press launch on the 4th of April 2017, a trailer was shown with the last 3 seconds showing John Sim, and Moffat told all the press not to reveal the return. And that's kind of like asking sharks not to eat the shark bait that they throw into the pool, because of course the press are going to fucking reveal that the Master came out, and eventually, you know, over like 2 days later, Dan Wooten from The Sun, who is under a lot of fire right now because he recently got fired from GB News and he's a terrible, terrible person. He leaked the news and Moffat immediately regretted showing the Master in the trailer. I don't understand why he did it in the first place. It's such a weird thing to show. Like, only 3
Just
seconds
excited.
of John Sim.
Just excited. He's like, ooh, John Sim's back. This will be fun.
Yeah, but, you know, again, I almost forgot that John Sim was coming back when I was watching this episode because I was so captivated about what was going on with Bill. That came as such a surprise to me, and all of the horror elements of this episode and body horror elements really work well, and it holds up really well. This episode is on fire.
Yeah, it's ace.
It's so good.
It's so good.
It's like an episode I'd recommend people watch at Halloween, even though part 2 of the episode isn't horror focused. It's more of a, you know, personal stuff with Bill. So this is like a Halloween night episode, whereas part 2 is like 1st of November episode, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And yeah, I know, I just like, I miss the Capaldi days as well, because I feel like he was like, especially his run when it was first coming out, so underappreciated as the Doctor. Like, there was so much, like, I remember so many people dismissive of him when he was announced as the Doctor. I knew so many people that stopped watching when he came on as the Doctor, and then Series 8 was like, I can't, like, actually convince anyone to watch this because it's not good. But Series 9 and 10 is such a redemption for him, and I absolutely adore his era of Doctor Who so much. It's one of my favorite eras, and I wish I had more of it. You know, I wish that era was more loved than it is, because it's so goddamn good.
But, you know, we chose the right era of Doctor Who to love, because if we loved the 13th Doctor era, there's even less of it, and people hate the 13th Doctor era a lot more. If we really loved it, we'd be trying to convince more people to love the 13th Doctor era. I think the 12th Doctor era is more appreciated.
yeah. And now it's more appreciated because they've seen how much worse it can get. But you know, like if we were the people that loved the 13th Doctor's era, we would straight up be different people. I don't understand them. I don't understand the people that are like the 13th Doctor's era is the best TV I've ever seen in my life. I love the Doctor and Yaz so much. Oh my god. I'm like, what the fuck? Are you watching the same show that I am watching? Like.
Yeah, I don't understand it either, but you know, at least people do like it. At least it hit people in a positive way.
Yeah, at least somebody out there connected with what Chibnall was writing.
You can't write off an entire era just because you dislike it. I think, you know, the fact that people really liked it. You know, when we're doing the 13th Doctor in 2 weeks, we'll have a lot to say about how certain story arcs were kind of just dropped, but. You know,
I love it. I loved the 13th Doctor's era because of how mental it is. Like it's got so many problems. I mean like it's like all we talk about. The past like 2 years we've been doing this podcast, we've spent 95% of the time just being like, what was going on? What's happening? And just constantly like Chibnall is such an enigma of a man, and his era is so strange.
And it sucks because there was some stuff to like. It's just. He dropped the ball at the end. It's really sad, but, you know, I would still go back to watch some Jodie Whittaker episodes, but the whole run, probably
I'll watch
not.
I'll watch the entire run when I'm going through the show chronologically, or when I'm like if I'm like watching the show with someone that's never seen it before and we get onto Jodie's era. I'm not going to suddenly be like, we can skip this. I still think it's worth experiencing. Yeah. Especially for the first time, like you go in, you get blindsided by so much.
And you know, I would never tell anybody to skip over the era myself because you know they could love it, they could really love it.
Yeah, maybe. And then if they do love it, you know to not be friends with them anymore.
Or maybe they could explain something to you.
There's no explaining madness. There's no explaining madness.
But yeah, World Enough in Time, great episode.
Good episode.
Such a fantastic episode.
And next week, we will be looking at the part 2 of this, The Doctor Falls, and ending our look at the Capaldi era for this year, which is crazy that we're already finishing up Capaldi. Where has time gone? How are we almost at the 60th anniversary? My brain can't understand these things. I'm looking forward to covering that because I haven't watched this episode since it aired, and I haven't yet watched it at the time of recording, so I don't even know what I think about it. Maybe it sucks. I genuinely remember almost nothing from the episode. I remember almost nothing from the episode, so I'm very much looking forward to watching that. In the meantime, you can find us here on YouTube at youtube.com/@WhoWatchesWhoPod, where you can view us in video form and give us a like and a comment and a subscribe and all that jazz. You can also listen to the podcast in audio form if that's your thing. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. There's an RSS link, all that stuff. We have a Facebook page, facebook.com/WhoWatchesWho. We have an x.com account at WatchesDoctor, and you can find my gaming channel at Psychedelic Gaming Hobos. And besides all that nonsense, send us an email at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. You can see us next week when we cover The Doctor's Falls. Until then, bye.